This legendary piece of firefighting history is retired Engine 3 from Las Vegas Fire and Rescue. It was the first Las Vegas engine on scene of the tragic MGM Grand Fire after only being in service for 6 months. She is a 1980 American LaFrance Century Series with a Detroit 6V92 diesel motor. It also sports a 35-foot Telesquirt supported by a 500-gallon water tank. I also love the red and blue Code 3 lights, which are only outperformed by the Mars 888 traffic breaker that oscillates up front. This beauty was also featured on counting cars a few years ago when Danny and Rolly spot it while they were out looking for a quick flip. They make a stop to look it over, and the owner takes them for a spin around the block with Rolly riding on the tailboard. Stay tuned for this special episode of Firefighters in Fire Trucks Getting Ice Cream with Ryan Pennington. Hi everybody, how you doing? Jesse Quinalty. Welcome back to another episode of Firefighters and Fire Trucks Getting Ice Cream. We're here in Las Vegas, Nevada, teaching at Firehouse World, and I'm actually going to see a bunch of stars, including Ryan Pennington, going ahead and talk about Jumpseat training and a lot of other cool stuff that he's doing, so stay tuned. So here we are, pulling up to the convention center, go pick up Ryan and hang out with him and see what he has to say, which I'm sure is a lot. What's up, buddy? I figured you like this. Did you have an engine like this in your department?
Oh my gosh, this brings back so much memories. It takes me back to 07 when we had the same thing.
Well, we'll cruise it down the street.
Absolutely.
Dude.
Oh man, look at this thing.
Oh, I know.
Wow.
Well, you talk about memories. This engine was the very first Las Vegas Fire and Rescue engine on scene at the MGM Grand Fire.
No way.
Yeah.
That is phenomenal. First due.
Getting on scene, giving the condition report for that.
Oh.
Here you go. Yeah, why don't you just do it?
Dispatch from Engine 3, we're on scene. Go ahead and hit
Let me turn on the lights for you too. We'll just get that going.
All right, dispatch, I need you to go ahead and hit the 5th alarm. Yeah, no dispatch. We don't need the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Go right to the 5th. Man.
All right, man. Let's go get some chunky monkey or whatever suits your boat.
It's awesome.
Drive.
Man, I tell you, listen to this Detroit. This is awesome.
Oh, it definitely sounds sexy. Not like the fire engines of today, you know?
Yeah, I don't know though. Our new Detroits sound pretty good.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we just switched to Detroits back home. Can definitely get used to this West Coast sun.
Yeah, how was the flight out?
Oh, it's a fantastic flight. It's been a great conference so far here in Las Vegas for sure.
So you taught this morning.
I did. I taught both mornings so far. First day I did the aggressive searching tactics. Let's try that again. I did the aggressive search tactics for cluttered environments for hoarding houses, and today it was aggressive.
I like the new name change for cluttered environments.
For cluttered environments.
Is that a PC thing? Like,
nah, yeah, it really is, because I mean, we want to be respectful of their people and don't call them hoarders.
Right.
There was actually a fire chief in the Northeast had to apologize to the family for calling them a hoarder on television.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we really do need to be PC with it.
So you've been teaching that class for a while. It's like one of the first ones you were hitting the conference circuit on. What's some of the big takeaways that you can send out to the nation right now as far as those types of residents where it makes our job very difficult for fire attack and search? Yeah,
so first thing is be aware of it. Just because you're in a rich neighborhood don't mean that you're not going to have it. Just because you're in a poor neighborhood doesn't mean you're automatically going to have it. It's a diagnosable disorder that affects any races, any age group or demographic. You need to be prepared for it. And firefighters have a hard time going in reverse. So when we're making the push and we establish into a heavy content condition, at what point do we slow down and try something different? Your searches are slowed. You need to adjust your tactics for that. And your fire attack, when you're unable to get into the seat of the fire, you're going to have to go a little old school on it.
Well, and we start talking about known versus unknown rescue.
That's right.
That makes a big difference in that type of environment.
Absolutely. And a lot of people need to realize that people who are afflicted with compulsive hoarders, they are very aware of who is in their house and who is not.
Right.
So if they tell you everyone's out, you need to take them at face value until you can get the resources. Should you still do a secondary search? Absolutely. But a primary search in cluttered conditions is extremely dangerous and difficult.
Right. And it almost becomes some of that go, no go.
Absolutely.
You pull up and especially if they're saying that nobody's in the house, everybody's out.
Yeah, that's right.
You open up the front door and you see those conditions,
it's a dumpster with a roof.
Right.
So how would you fight a dumpster fire? Would you crawl into a dumpster? And of course the answer is no. But I mean, ultimately you're going to have to get inside it to put it out. Either that or you're going to have to demolish the building. So what I talk about is we want to talk about hitting it from the sides, going old school. It's so funny that we're in American LaFrance. Maybe pull out the piercing nozzle.
Right. Maybe shove it through the wall. They do it in Europe every day.
That's right. So maybe we use the Bresnan distributor nozzle. Or maybe we use our West Coast chainsaws and cut the window down and make the window into a door, and that way we can get inside.
I could have sworn you said you weren't going to start up the conversation about the chainsaw thing.
Hey, I'm all about it. I love seeing the differences between east, west, north, and south. I really think it's so, just like the young firefighters from Las Vegas who are helping us film today, they're like, it really is neat seeing everybody's perspective. It really is awesome.
Right. Yeah, they're helping me film, and got a chance to, we had some time beforehand, so I snuck them into Kevin Lewis's class on vented or isolated search. Yep. You know, it's there's so much cool stuff going on in the fire service. We just did some vented or search stuff at my department, and you're plunging into that window. They wanted to make sure all the firefighters and all the captains go through it, so we understand as captains what we're putting our firefighters into that environment. But you get to the point where you plunge through that window and you quickly figure out that the thermal imaging camera doesn't do anything for you in that environment. It's just, you literally talk about going in without a hose line or going above the fire, and you have to get your people adjusted to that concept.
Absolutely. And the thing that what I teach about in cluttered condition is, imagine doing a VES without being able to shut the door. That is the problem. We were able to complete a case study in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, that's a suburb of DC, and they did a VES without the ability to close the door. So guess what? The fire's coming to where you're at. And the way they solved that problem is they took a hose line with them.
Well, and the potential for VEIS or VES, whatever you want to call it, with the extra valve, it's just going to continue to increase in the United States.
Absolutely.
Because everybody has these open concept homes now, right?
Right.
So, and now if you talk about a two-story open concept, that stuff in the kitchen, which is still a lot of our fires, kitchen fires.
Right.
Now that smoke's going up to the bedroom areas, and the stairwell's not protected by drywall, and so those potentials and opportunities are just going to continue to increase in variancy.
I believe wholeheartedly that VES is one of the most essential skills that every firefighter should have, not only in their toolbox, so to speak, but in their toolbox of things that they do very well. It's because it's where you can make a definitive difference the fastest.
Right.
I mean, one person 24-foot ground ladder, if you've got a known rescue, if you've got a short-staffed company, one person can do it. At least get them to the window and wait for assistance there. So absolutely.
Well, we talk about saving lives and property, you know, and we're in the city, we always talk about the 4 Ps, right? People, pets, pictures, pills. And I always talk about the pets part, right?
Right.
Dogs are lives, cats are property. You have to keep that in check, right? But,
don't tell my daughter that.
But that's literally, like, you're talking about saving lives there, not just saving the stuff that's ruined by fire and smoke and water. That's getting in there and actually saving lives, right?
That's what we're here for. I love that.
Should be here for.
Yeah, the thing about it is I don't like this term survivability profiling, because it's proven time and time again that the profile depends just on one closed door.
Right.
I mean, just one closed door is going to be the difference between living and dying. And especially in my topic of hoarding house fires, I think, in my opinion, after completing the case studies, you are more, I guess you're safer inside hoarding conditions, because you're underneath the contents.
Okay.
The top might be burning faster, but down deep inside the contents, it's not on fire right away.
Right.
So, I mean, my idea of survivability profiling is putting you inside a searchable space and getting to see if it's searchable or not. Of course, you're not going to go into a well-involved room. I love Chief Norman saying that I'll take a smoked victim over a roasted one any day.
Right.
So if they're smoked, we're going to get them. If they're roasted, then it's something different.
Yeah.
Look at that thing. Could you imagine performing a rescue on top of that Ferris wheel?
Yeah, that's when you call up the technicians to come help you turn it around.
That's how high do you think that thing is?
I don't know. Google knows.
We won't Google while we're riding into there, right?
Well, you talk about survivability profile, and I use that in the Slab Savers class that I do. And I think survivability profile, it's just like clean cap. It's gone to a completely different extreme. Like,
from its intended purpose.
Right. When I talk about survivability profile, it's in the opposite direction. Not, I see fire blowing out of a bunch of windows, so that means we don't go inside. No, survivability profile is where are my opportunities where these people can survive this environment, and how can I get to them, and how can I save them, or where should I be applying water to not make their position worse. Right.
And that's something I learned from the Kill the Flashover folks, is how you enhance that is by carrying your thermal imaging camera with you outside the building.
Right.
And that's especially in the hoarding environment, is you can see the cold. The cold is the survivable spaces. Any moth to a flame can see the window blowing out of a fire. Use your head and go find out where the fire's not at yet, and that's where you go do it. Right. So I completely agree. I think the intended purpose of it was to say, hey, listen, that's non-tenable, this is tenable, now go get it. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's obviously some areas that you can look at it, well, that's non-tenable, and you can make those decisions. Obviously, if you pull up to a house and there's fire blowing on every single window, yeah, there's probably a good possibility that there's no savable people inside there. Right. But just, guess what? You're still going to do the same thing. Put water on it.
Yeah, you know? It's miraculous how that new invention of dihydrogen monoxide makes things better, right?
Right.
And the inability, or not the inability, but maybe the unwillingness of today's firefighters to flow water burns my hind end. Turn the water on and float the victim out of the house. Right. It's so funny, I did a case study where they physically did that. They had a confirmed working fire, confirmed entrapment. They couldn't get inside. It was well involved. They literally floated the victim out of the basement.
Right.
I didn't think fresh dead bodies floated like that, but they do.
Well, and it's also knowing where to put that water, how much water. Right. You know, it's funny, like even the phrase like big fire, big water. Right. You know, you have that pushed down the fire service so well. And, you know, all these strategy and tactics scenarios where we got a commercial strip mall with a couple of stores going, and the engine captain will pull up and they'll pull a 2.5 on it. And I go, okay, you should have pulled 5 2.5. Look at the fire, length times width divided by 3, or
right.
You know, height times 100, whatever you want to do. You're quickly going to figure out, like, look, you're not overcoming that. Well, I went big fire, big water. Well, you should have been bigger fire, bigger water.
Right. I completely agree. That's awesome.
One of my favorite Chief Bruno C stories is he's the district chief at the time, and Nick is working as a battalion chief. His son Nick is a battalion chief. Right. And they're on some large commercial fire that's defensive. It's like a carpet storage warehouse. And Bruno responds as the duty-wide chief for a larger, greater alarm fire. So he goes up to his son, who's actually commanding this fire, and goes up to Nick's passenger side window of the Suburban and knocks on the window and says, "Nick, roll the window down." And the best part about it is Nick rolls it down like this much. And his dad, Al, says, "Hey, can you roll that down a little more?" And he rolls it down another. You know, so eventually he gets to the point where he says, "Hey, so what's your strategy on this, son?" And he looks over at the fire, looks over at his dad. He says, "Aquarium. I'm going to fill it up with water until it can't take any more water."
I tell you, he was full of great stories.
And that's the thing, storytelling. Last week I did this show with Chase Sargent. A good portion of the show was just talking about storytelling in the fire service.
Man, I tell you, this place is beautiful. It's my first time in Las Vegas, and the construction.
You serious?
Oh yeah, I've never been to Las Vegas. It's just, I mean, I tell you what goes through my mind driving through the downtown strip here is the challenges these firefighters face.
Right.
I mean, a 200-foot stretch in these buildings is nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, that may get you to the front casino.
Right.
Imagine what the firefighters riding in this engine felt like pulling up to the MGM that day.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's remarkable to see what the different challenges we all face in different areas, especially this with the occupancy. I mean, there's people everywhere here.
Right. Well, we go around the country, teaching around the country, and you got to be able to mold and shape your class to the environment you're in, you know?
Yeah, and especially when it comes to staffing and response. I mean, it's just so different. I mean, those young kids today we're talking about, first thing they do is put the PPV fan up.
Right.
A lot of people back home, they say the only thing that's good for is drying your gear out after the fire.
Right.
So, I mean, it really is neat to get out and learn from different people. Because, I mean, it's the same circus, we're just a bunch of different clowns.
Right. Yeah, there's places that I'm known as a ringleader with the effing clowns, you know.
So you're the ringmaster.
That's it. 3-ring circus all in one station.
Yeah, I tell everybody, that, especially in the class I've taught today, the aggressively positive class is that fire departments are basically just like organized junior highs. We have our jocks, we have our geeks, we have our bookworms.
Right.
And then you've got, I mean, it's the same. It really is the same.
So how long have you been doing that class now?
Aggressively positive.
Sorry, I call it aggressively passive.
Passively aggressive. It came out from the podcast, and we were having a podcast discussion one day, and I went on my rant. I mean, I know it's hard to believe that Ryan rants like this, but
I thought that was the name of your podcast, Ryan's Rant.
Yeah, right. You know what? Maybe I should change it to Ryan's Rants.
Instead of Jumpseat, yeah.
Yeah, but it came from, it's like, you know what? I get so sick and tired of firefighters that argue over what nozzle's the best, but most of them can't even clean a toilet worth a darn. And I came across and I was like, if somebody would take their smoothbore toilet bowl brush or their fog nozzle toilet flush and make sure the toilets are spick and span clean, maybe we'd have a better environment for the station. Instead of being an aggressive firefighter, be an aggressive firefighter on the fire scene, but in the station, why don't we become aggressively positive?
Right.
And it was like a little light went off. So it's like, I want to make a class out of it. And when I made the class out of it, I decided there will be no PowerPoints, there will be no script. So I have the Book of Ryan, is what I call it. So I whip out the
I've
Book
seen
of
your
Ryan.
book, yeah.
And matter of fact, it's right here in my pocket.
Of course it is.
For all the viewers back home, this is the Book of Ryan. And well, the thing about it is when I went through my negative period in the firehouse, I was going through some stuff at the firehouse with some negative people, so I reached out for some solutions. And the biggest solution I found is I control how I act and how I feel. Why do I let other people's influence dictate that?
Right.
And that's when the Book of Ryan came out, and it's how Aggressively Positive started. So, and it's a great class because there's no script. It's just a bunch of firefighters talking. So,
well, like later today, I'm teaching my strategy and tactics for employee fires, and there's a lot of stuff I talk about pre-planning. You know, there's days I know when I'm going to the station. I look at the staffing. I know who I'm going to work with, and you talk about, okay, I know that I'm going to work today, and that person got forced to work today against their will.
Oh yeah.
I'm already starting that. I know that I'm pre-planning what kind of day I'm going to have based on who the individual is, and like you said, and now at a company officer rank, now you sit in that seat. It's now you're trying not only to keep yourself positive, but influence your crew to be positive. That's a whole nother.
It really is. And the thing about it is if you notice, whether you're the jump seat firefighter or the captain or the chief, I encourage people in class to take the 10-shift challenge. For 10 shifts, you're not allowed to say anything negative about anyone, anything. Don't care if your dog just got ran over, your wife just ran away, your husband don't like you. When you step through the threshold of the firehouse, you're there to be positive that day. By shift one is almost impossible. And if you fail in shift one, you got to start off back over at shift one again. By shift 4, you'll start to see in yourself having some more positivity around the firehouse. By shift 10, you've changed your firehouse.
Right.
The key to this challenge is you're not allowed to tell anybody. So you got to show up and be positive and not tell anybody that you're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it really affects change.
Well, and it's funny too, like in the managing employee fires class, I talk about ventilation. Your employees have to vent their frustrations and things like that. But as a company officer, I want that ventilation to be vertical. If you got problems, I want them coming up to me.
Right.
And I'm doing positive pressure ventilation back in. I'm going to put in clean, fresh air I had an engineer that he'd be at the table, we'd be bitching about something, and at 9 o'clock on the dot, he just got up from the table and walked out.
Right.
And the first day he does it, it's pretty interesting. Like, hey, what's going on?
Right.
You know? And then by the third shift, 9 o'clock rolls around, he goes out to do his engine check. So I finally like, hey, dude, what's going on? He goes, you know what? I just decided I got to be part of the family and the crew.
Right.
But at 9 o'clock, I'm done bitching about whatever. I'm going to start, you know, so the 10 shift challenge, or, hey, we can only bitch about this stuff for so long that we're not going to have any influence over, like you talked about.
Well, and that's the thing about it is, and especially when I talk about people, that I had to learn to stay in my lane. I have to control the things that I can control and let the things that I can't control go. And it's like, I took a class from our chief, retired chief back home. Chief C.W. Sigma came out and he said, Ryan, the fire chief is always an idiot until one thing happens. I said, Chief, what's that? He says, you become the fire chief, then you're the idiot.
Right.
And there's a lot of truth to it, because it's like, from the bottom up, you see all these problems and you think you have the solutions, but in reality, you don't know what the chief is dealing with.
Yeah.
Whether that's city hall pressures. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, we see it as blindingly obvious, but that chief might have circumstances that you don't understand.
Right.
And I mean, it's I don't know. It's just like one of my favorite quotes from the Grinch movie is, "Solve world hunger, tell no one." Right? I mean, there's a lot of truth to that in the fire service. It's like, it seems like we all have the answers, but we don't tell anybody.
Well, there's plenty of people like that are at the floor level, you know, the suppression level, that they just go, well, we can get rid of our chiefs. I don't know why we're paying them. They're not doing anything until they start figuring that out. You know, go spend some time in admin and see all the other things that the fire department does besides put out fires.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, and the thing about when I went through this passive discovery through the negativity is, it's one of the best books I read by Brene Brown. She says, maybe you need to understand that people are doing the best that they can. And that really kind of rings in your ears. You think, well, you think if you have a bad chief, that bad chief's trying to do a bad job, maybe they're doing the best that they can. So if you take that approach and understand things more, you kind of let things go. And you try to hold people to expectations that they're never going to meet. If we spend that time taking the expectations back on what I'm doing, hey, Ryan's a little chubby right now. My expectation, I shouldn't be chubby right now.
Right. That's my expectation for you, too.
Yeah. All right, you listeners, Ryan is too chubby. He's got to be not chubby no more.
Yes.
But in reality, if you take all that time and focus you have away from solving the global issues to a local problem, you're going to start seeing a difference in your environment. And I tell you what, it's really going to help your home life.
It's having that managing chaotic incidents or that MCI mentality, right? Do the greatest number for the greatest number of people that you can, and there's tons of people that are bleeding on the tarps. If you're not doing any treatment, right? But you have to triage them. You have to, because you can only solve so many problems at once.
Well, it's so funny that all the things we're talking about here, we're not stretching hose, we're not cutting roofs, we're not. It's the human side of what we do.
Right.
And I think the cumulative effect of the bad side that we see affects it as well. I mean, I can't even express how many times I've had someone reach out after listening to a podcast and say, hey, Ryan, we're having a bad time at the firehouse. And one of the most compelling stories was a fire station that has recently went through a line of duty death and helping the recovery process. When I got that telephone call, I was like, I don't have the answers to this problem. So I'm just going to listen and try to give some advice of where to find those answers.
Right.
And I mean, it's like we complain about our firehouse, but in reality, we haven't experienced a line of duty death. I can't imagine what those firefighters are going through right now.
Right.
Because that amplifies it times a million, really.
I had the opportunity to teach at LA City Fire at Frank Hotchkiss Memorial Training Center.
Oh, nice.
And so Frank's, they lovingly call it Frank's, but Frank Hotchkiss Memorial Training Center is it's an old Navy training facility.
Right.
And they had a great alarm fire there, and Frank was up on top of the aerial and fell off the aerial and landed into a classroom on the second floor. It's like classroom 207, I think, that's dedicated to him.
Oh, wow.
But the whole training center, right, the first floor, there's pictures of firefighters that have died on the job, right, for LA City Fire Department. And it really starts to get to that point. If your fire department's never had that line of duty death, doesn't have that culture change, it's a sweeping transformation of your entire department.
Yeah, I really hope it's something I never have to deal with. I had the fortune and the unfortunate. We had a Mayday back home, and it was one of our stud captains. I mean, he doesn't look like me. He's not round. And when he went through the floor, I was working the OB position by myself, and I had to go down the hallway to help him. And it's like, I can remember it was just a remarkable experience that I was able to help him, but B, it's like when we pulled the video from it, because our thermal image cameras record video, is reliving those chaotic moments. And at the time it was a very minor problem, but when that radio call came out, it didn't sound minor to him, and it sure wasn't minor to me.
Yeah.
So it's just a smack in the face and the thing about was they were doing everything right. I mean, the fire was knocked. They'd made a successful rescue. I mean, this was going picture perfect, and 3 words just changed it all. So, and it's so funny that I hate admitting this on camera, but when the Mayday call was gone, I didn't have my face piece on. I didn't even take time to put my face piece on. I went down a smoke-filled hallway, although it wasn't blazing full of fire, but a smoke-filled hallway without my face piece on. I mean, that was...
It's training for that environment, right? We do a lot of Mayday training and all that kind of stuff. But give your crews some type of drill where they're at some type of building. They're not expecting a Mayday training.
That's the difference.
Right? Because we had a Mayday and we saw ourselves do things, right? We're breaking windows just like they did in Charleston. Right? And we're like, why? That did not go the way it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Because people lose their mind, right? You have to put them in that stress inoculation training and put them through that.
Completely agree.
My buddy Paul Strong up in Washington, he does a RIC class, and he sent all of his firefighters through this huge Mayday prompt, and they're going through all that. But the whole goal of this thing was they were never going to save the firefighter down. The whole goal of this is to get them embedded so far that they can't get out, and a bunch of self-survival stuff, to the point that they're ripping off their masks and freaking out and things like that. Because we train a lot for success. Right? We got to train for failure. Well, what happens if you search that entire house where mom's out front screaming, my baby's inside, and you go do a search and you haven't found that baby? What is that going to do to your people at that point? You know?
I cannot agree with you more. And I really think that, especially moving up to this right front seat, it's my job to prepare them for it and to add a little bit of stress along the way. I'm trying to find those ways. So far, the way that I've done it is just timing them, put them on a timer. And you would not believe the amount of small mistakes that they make just because they're trying to beat the clock. So that's my experience so far, and I hope to make that even more so as we keep going along.
Well, one of the things I'll do, I'll take a firefighter out, and we'll pull up to a house, and we'll say, okay, this is a life rescue fire, right? Mom's out front, baby's inside or whatever, right? I said, I want to spot the engine, pull the air brake, pull a line, grab ticking tools, get a 360. Me and that firefighter are going right inside that structure, right? No 2 in, 2 out. We're going to be 2 in and 2 on the way, and we're going right inside. So I tell them, like, I don't give them a time frame, right? But my goal is to get it down in 2 minutes. The first time we'll do it, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, 2 minutes and 45 seconds, whatever. But the first thing I do, as soon as we get that line charged, get the pattern checked, all that kind of stuff, mask up, ready to go, and we stop the time. Oh, yeah. Once the time is stopped, the first thing I do is I bring that firefighter back around the edge. I say, what color's the house? How are you forcing entry? Because they're so task level, right, that they're not looking for all that stuff.
That goes back to Chief Castaway's situational awareness. And that mission myopia, whatever he calls it. And it's like you lose your mind basically because you're so focused in on it. Absolutely. It's so funny. I just got the alert. My guys have got a working fire right now back home. Can we get on the radio and tell them Engine 3 will be there in about 4 days?
We'll be en route for the second alarm.
We'll be there in 4 days, Chief.
Oh, there's the custard place. I missed the turn. Hold on.
All right, turn the red lights on.
Shit.
Are we already here?
Oh,
wow. Boy, this is just such a neat town. So now we went from downtown high-rises into mid-levels, mid-rises. Multiple families.
All the way to watch that mirror.
I just wanted somebody to teach the class dealing with palm tree fires. These things burn quite spectacularly, don't they?
We get them down in San Marino City a lot. It's pretty amazing. Sometimes you just got to go deck gun on it, you know?
Deck gun to the palm trees.
Yep. No,
all right, Chief.
Especially when it's windy, when it's high winds,
right.
we got to do it.
Really?
Yeah, because it'll go palm tree to palm tree.
So is that officially hitting it hard from the yard?
That's hitting something hard,
right?
That's for sure. Hey, look, it's Elvis. Weird.
Is that dumping your load from the road? So now is this Old Vegas here?
Yeah, well, going down on the other side. Did you guys go down there the other night? Down there?
No, we did not.
Yeah. It's farther over where you get to the really Old Vegas.
Right. I'll tell you what a neat town. Boy, if this engine was riding in, this probably driving down the streets going, yeah, burned that building down, had a fire in that one. Could you imagine the stories it would tell? Oh
I
my
know.
gosh.
And that's the crazy thing. I mean, I've got to drive some pretty cool rigs for this show. The Sulca episode,
oh yeah,
I was driving a 1972 Crown Fire Coach that was originally LA City Pump 27 out of the Hollywood station.
Oh, nice.
Could you imagine all the calls that it went on in downtown area Hollywood?
That's so awesome. It was a convertible too.
It was.
Yeah.
Well, I was telling the guy when we picked this one up, this is the first one I've driven in a long time that wasn't a stick, so I'm glad to be. It's cool driving the old rigs, but I'm driving an automatic today, which is nice.
Oh, it really is. And these American LaFrances, I'm not a big historian about them, but I know over the East Coast towns, they were everywhere.
Yeah.
Did you guys see them out west much?
Yeah, actually, one of the very first engines I was on an American LaFrance, the engine that I got burned over on a wildfire, me and my crew got trapped in a garage. I was on a LaFrance very similar to this one.
Oh, wow.
For that fire.
Man, you West Coast guys, that is a whole different ballgame right there. The wildland and wildland interface. It's just something that's so cool about it.
Yeah.
I mean, just look at the topography out here. I mean, I'm in the middle of Appalachia, or whatever you want to call it. We're in the bluegrass, but our hills and mountains aren't quite this tall.
Right.
But ours go up at a steeper angle. So this is more of a sloping entrance. Ours pretty much go up a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So most of our fire engines are really short and small like this one is. It's beautiful out here.
So you talked about your podcast, right? How long have you been doing that now?
Started in 2014. It was just I guess it was just I don't even know what to say. I got tired of writing articles.
Right.
I really felt like that if I started the podcast, I could let my personality come out. Everybody tells me, say, Ryan, you're so passionate. Your passion's infectious. You're so passionate about it. Hey, how are you? And I wanted to let my personality shine. So back in 2014, I started listening to some podcasts. And I was like, you know what? This is a great medium. I don't have to have correct English. I can use some slang and I can throw my personality in there. Will somebody listen? So Dr. Gasaway and I started this podcast thing, and I started off and it's like, you know what? My downloads were okay. The podcasts were okay. Technology was a stopping point to begin with.
Right.
So I recorded the first. I went hot and heavy for like the first 40 episodes. But then it was like, you know what? People are not listening. I don't see the downloads coming up. So then I kind of backed off for a while. I had to go through this negative time at work. I had to get promoted to lieutenant.
Right.
And then all of a sudden back in I want to say 2017, I looked up and I was like, oh my gosh, why am I getting 600 downloads a day and I haven't fed this machine in 2 years? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to commit to getting back into Jumpseat Radio and I'm going to push this forward. And now, fast forward to 2020, I'm getting anywhere between 12,000 to 18,000 downloads a month. I'm seeing downloads in South Africa, Switzerland, South Korea. And I really think it's just because the success of the podcast platform, I guess. And it's something I just absolutely love.
Well, your firefighters just going on shift, going to work, listen to that on the way to the station,
Yeah. And that's why we try to keep it in 30 minutes.
Right.
Most people commute about 30 minutes.
I can listen to the Backstreet Boys on my way, or I can listen to Ryan Pennington.
The Jumpseat Radio.
That's the discussion you got.
Well, and everybody comes back and asks me, says, Ryan, you called it Jumpseat Radio, but you're not in the jump seat anymore. And my response to that is yeah, I may be riding the right front seat now, but if we take that jump seat mentality with us everywhere, and the jump seat mentality is everything needs to be focused on supporting the mission, and the mission is making the rescue and stretching the lines, make your mindset a jump seat mindset. What are we doing right now to support the mission of stretching lines and making rescues?
Right.
And I really think that's a great mindset for any company officer, much less a chief officer.
Exactly. Well, I got to co-teach a class with Paul Strong not too long ago, and it was integrating tactics and strategy with a common approach.
There you go.
From the chief officer level, the command level, to the captain at the tactical level, and the firefighter at the task level, each one of those have blind spots. You know, you have to know what everybody else is doing. So, and a lot of times we lose touch of what that jump seat firefighter really their assignment is nowadays. And when we as captains are like, what's he doing that for? Well, maybe he wasn't taught, or what, you know.
Right.
We just expect them to get off the truck and go to work.
And I love hanging out with Chief Rubin, and something I learned from him early when I was going through this promotional process was when he was the fire chief of the Washington, D.C. or Washington Fire Department, that
Right.
he says it, right? He says that he'd have his driver, because he had a driver, he would go by engine 10, put his gear on the rig. And at first the guys were like, oh my gosh, why is the fire chief here putting his gear on the rig? He's like, you know what? I want to run some runs and experience it. Now, of course, it's not going to be what day-to-day life is, because when the chief shows up, we do everything right?
Right.
But it still gives him some sort of an idea of what the firefighters are going through at that particular time. And I really think that's fantastic. And one of your previous guests, Chief P, Steve Krasbrowski, did the same thing. He's like, I'll go put my gear on. Of course, he's the white cloud, and they never run anything, so.
Right?
Yeah. Is this us?
Yeah, right here.
Frozen custard. Man, I'm excited to eat ice cream.
Well, I shouldn't be actually helping your cause of the roundness, but
That's all right. We'll get on the treadmill once we get home tomorrow. That's all right.
Aaron Zam's out,
Yep.
right? He's like, when are we doing the show together? I go, I'm not going to eat frozen yogurt or
with the
fruit
fitness guy.
parfaits or whatever. Look, this is an ice cream show. You don't eat ice cream. You can't go. All right. Shut this thing down here.
Something about the sound of the Detroit. It's like music to your ears almost.
I like it. All right, let's go figure out what you're going to eat for ice cream.
Woohoo!
Roll down the window again.
If we can get out of this thing.
Welcome to town, take a look around. Now sir, putting money in my hand right now, cause right now's the time for that roulette, spinning and talking, walking to women till I'm opening them. Using a pinch and a passion, rolling right up in the center with the dash blowing on until they say I'm the winner if you dig it. Dug it while the blackjack is flipped in my black stack of chips was 25%.
Let's go to Vegas, baby. Let's go tonight.
Let's go tonight.
Let's go to Vegas. We'll stay up all night. Let's go to Vegas, baby. Let's get away. Who wants to live forever when we can have a day? It's raining in the city. We got bills to pay. Packing up a suitcase. Let's take a holiday. Hop into a limo. Drive on through the night. The desert sky is cold, but the neon lights burn bright. Flying on a Friday, rent that baby Benz. Taxi to the 15 West on Charleston. Shopping at the Forum, Versace and Bhutan. Honey, this is Vegas, so bring your credit card. Let's go to Vegas, baby. Let's go tonight. Let's go to Vegas. We'll stay up all night.
Alright.
Let's go to Vegas, baby. Let's get away.
Let's get away.
Who wants to live forever when we can have a day? Flying for the weekend, breathe that desert air. Down to La Venetian, I will take you there.
I take you
Up
there.
the Eiffel Tower, sipping on my time.
My time.
You deserve the finer things.
Hey.
Let's go roll the
Hey,
dice.
soon as you see the neons, know that we on. Pop bottles with top models and the things you see me on. And we gone and force with hit from Miss Dion. And be gone again, I got things to spend cheese on this Vegas, man. We got to go, throw us $1,000 trips to the Bellagio. You got to know, is we throwing up cash out of the slide back room with the stash in the back. Hit the Venetian, tweaking, stack chips like cashes and rap rolling in winning again this actress. It's passing, asking who this cat is. Within an hour, got her backing on top of my mattress. It's how it goes, man. It's Vegas, dude. But you know what they say, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
helmets to wear. Here, man. Shoot, boy.